put that obstacle, but I'm here and I'm here to learn because God put you in my range as a man who have educated, who care, who love what he does, and nothing greater than doing what you love. So I'm here. Thank you. I'm here to learn, and I'm going to
Awesome.
call my wife tomorrow.
Good deal. Good deal. You know, it doesn't matter how slow we go, as long as we don't stop moving forward. And I tell you, I
Yes.
could tell you a lot of stories about that. Hey, I
Yes.
wanted to, and we'll spend some time talking about some of the things that you want to talk about. I wanted to make this more about a conversation, about a discussion, as opposed to a lecture, because a lecture can be pretty boring. So
Mhm.
what I'd like to do is go through a couple of slides, kind of set the base and the foundation for some things that I think are fundamental to any financial plan program, any really any creation of wealth, et cetera. And really, the whole idea behind the creation of wealth is not necessarily about the greed for gain or the greed for money. It really comes down to independence. And I think that money really sort of makes you more of what you are. Like if you're a good person, I think that with more money, you can do more good in the world. I think that if you're a bad person, more money just kind of makes you a worser. Is that a word? A worser person, right? So, but this really comes down to the things that the reason that I started doing this program really was the things that are not taught in school about money. Now, when I say not taught in school, I'm not talking just about grammar school. I'm not talking about high school. I'm also talking about college. I went through university, undergraduate and graduate degrees in accounting, finance, and economics. And these concepts and ideas were not even taught at the undergraduate and graduate level, which I think is kind of sad. So buckle up. I'm going to go through a few slides, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. I want to talk tonight about money blunders, and I call these money blunders of the otherwise intelligent, things that folks do. We see smart people make dumb decisions or do things that are not really the smartest or the brightest things, and how to avoid them. I think that if you avoid all of the mistakes that are made with money, you can sort of win by default, right? And I need to go through a couple of disclosures that this is just general education purposes. We're not looking for you to buy or sell or do anything. And please always seek competent advice from someone who specializes in that area of the business, whether it's legal, tax, accounting, investment, so on. And you can kind of read the rest of the the legalese that's on here. And I take the congratulations for having just recently gotten my CFP. It's been a long time coming. And Dennis, it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there, as long as you keep moving the ball downfield, right? And I'm really glad that I did. This is something that I started many, many years ago and let it go for a number of years. And the last year or two, it really kind of bugged me that I never finished it. And I did. And I'm happy that I did. I did learn a lot. I'll tell you, one of the things that I did learn as a result of this course was uh, it was inspiring, but it was also humbling. There's a lot to know, believe it or not, when it comes to personal money and finance. So um, I'm also a fee-based fiduciary financial planner, which means by law, my client's interest must come first. Okay, let's dive into it. Money blunders of the otherwise intelligent, common ways that smart people lose money. You know, Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, one of the most successful investors of all time, he said, rule number one is never lose money. Rule number two is don't ever forget rule number one. But you see, the problem is you don't know what you don't know, and you have to learn the hard way. And in most cases, when you make mistakes with money, number one, it costs you money. Number two, you learn after the mistake has been made, and that can be very, very costly. I want to talk a little bit about the basics of, and some of this stuff may sound a little bit rudimentary or very basic, but it's extremely important to understand the basics and to follow the basics and make sure that those are in place. You know, number one is have a plan. When you have a plan, you now have a starting point, a place to start measuring. I don't care where you start or how you start, but get started. Don't delay. If it's saving $1, I don't care if it's saving 50 cents, whatever it is, because what will happen is that starts to create some positive momentum in your life, and it reorganizes the way you think. Number two is probably one of the most important things, and that is live below your means. Always save and invest. You know, there are, maybe you've heard of things called fat fire retirements, where folks live on 50% of their income and save 50% of their income so that they can achieve financial independence much quicker. So what percentage of your income are you consuming and what are you saving? Avoiding consumer debt. And then some great rules of thumb: never let your money stop compounding. Now, we're going to do a whole separate class on how to do that, but never let your money stop compounding. Albert Einstein called compound interest the greatest invention of mankind. And I want to open it up for folks that were, this is sort of the test part. I saw that Peter came in because he's my favorite go-to person when he's here. Peter, you're going to stop showing up when so we did the class about 3-4 weeks ago, and we talked about compound interest. Do you recall any of that? A little bit? Yeah. All right. Okay. So what happens, Peter, if you take $1 and double it 20 times? What does that dollar grow to? Do you remember? So 1 is 2. Yeah.
Yeah. It was 2 million or 20 million.
Okay. All right. It was $1,048,000. Right? So if you write it down on a piece of paper, 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. Kind of get the idea that money doubling, $1 doubled 20 times equals $1,048,000. And you don't have to take my word for it. After the call, do the calculation on the calculator. Now, if you stop in between each one of those doubles and pay taxes at 30%. Anybody remember what that grows to? $1 doubled 20 times, but paying taxes at 30% in between. What that grows to? Ellen?
$40,000.
That's right. It's $1 million lost to taxes. So not only making sure that your money is growing at a rate that exceeds inflation and is doubling. We also talked a little bit about the rule of 72 in compound interest. And the rule of 72, anybody remember what that was? Okay, well, you're going to remember it this time after today, right? Ellen?
Yeah, you take the interest rate and divide it by 72, and that'll give you how many years it'll take for your money to double.
Exactly. So if you take the interest rate and divide it into the number 72, it'll give you an approximation of how fast your money doubles. So for instance, if you took 12% and divided it into the number 72, your money would double every 6 years, right? If your money was growing at 6% and you divide that into 72, your money would double every 12 years.
12 years.
So I always say that, what is the most important double when it comes to doubling your money?
The last one.
Last one.
Everyone says the last one. You know what I say? The next one. Right? So if you had $1 million, the next one becomes 2 and 4 and so on. So keep that in mind when growing. when growing. Now, by the way, the most humble of beginnings. I've been in the business long enough now to see folks with very humble beginnings, saving, investing, growing, and compounding their accounts to a point where they kind of look back and go, wow, I can't believe how it's grown. And what happens too over the years is as it's growing, that encourages them to save and invest more, right? So that as opposed to consuming for the neighbors. First of all, the neighbors don't care anyway. And by the way, if they do care, do you really care what they care about? Right? It doesn't, living, consuming, and being happy, and all that other stuff. But to do it for show or status is, I think, a game that doesn't get anybody anywhere. So I wanted to share with you the 7 common denominators of the wealthy. And this came from a book called The Millionaire Next Door. The Millionaire Next Door was written, probably 20 years ago, and they studied bunches and bunches. I don't know whether it was hundreds or thousands, but 2 decades worth of surveys and interviews and data that they compiled studying the wealthy in America to produce this book, and the surprising secrets of the wealthy and how they got there. And it's seldom dependent upon advanced degrees, intelligence that builds fortune. What they found was that wealth is more often the result of hard work, diligent savings, planning, and look at this one, living below your means. They found that wealth is more often the result of lifestyle of hard work, perseverance, planning, and most of all, self-discipline. Building wealth takes discipline, sacrifice, and hard work. And I'd be happy to share these are some of my notes from that book, but these are the statistics, the 7 common denominators of the wealthy. And I believe that, and I don't know if this is big enough, let me make it bigger. I believe that success leaves clues, and you can model and mirror other folks that have had success by doing what they do. You'll get what they've gotten. And for them, status and prestige with their wealth was not a concern. What they were looking for was financial independence is more important than displaying social status. They weren't the folks that were buying the brand new Mercedes Benz. They were the folks that would buy a car that would be a year or 2 old and get a much better value. In fact, that was one of the statistics, is that generally speaking, most of them bought cars that were a year or 2 old, took real good care of them, and kept them for a long time. They live below their means. They spend their time, energy, and money efficiently and effectively in ways that are conducive to build wealth. Their parents didn't provide them with financial help. Their adult children are self-sufficient, and they are good at targeting market opportunities and timing, and they usually choose the right business or occupation. Does anybody find any of that surprising? Right? And if you think about that, anybody want to share what maybe they're thinking to themselves is, maybe I could tighten up my budget a little bit. Maybe I could. Now, I never tell clients or friends what to spend their money on. That's a big mistake, right? Peter, play less golf, or that's a good way to make an enemy. However, I would say that there's probably some things here and there that are wasteful in everyone's budget. Would you agree with that? And by taking a little bit of time and effort to find that waste that's in that budget and driving it into saving and investment, so that, and stories of folks that I have that are, working folks, saving their money, saving it over time, have been making more money in their investment accounts than they do on their job. What does that mean? They can quit their job, couldn't they? Right? That's the idea with financial freedom. Okay. Any questions? Any stories you'd like to share with that? open up the conversation a little bit?
Yeah, Brian, I'd say one of my things or favorite things to do, and has been for many, many years, is go to the junk store. That's what my mom and I always called it. And we learned about it from a cousin who had 3 young kids, and it was just expensive to clothe them. And there was a thrift shop up the street, just within a half-mile or a mile of their home. And she used to go, my mom went, and it became a habit for us. Now, you can easily become a hoarder if you're not careful, but the fact of the matter is, pretty much any product or any item that I need, it exists somewhere in some secondhand or thrift shop. And I can go and I can just be aware and go and look and come across some, and I'll discover something, or I can be on a mission to find something. And the amount of money that you can save is phenomenal versus going to even your discount stores, your Walmarts, your Targets. You're able to get the exact product that you would have paid full retail price at a thrift store.
Yeah, I love it.
And I gave a friend of my mom's, I had gotten one of those those like Mr. Coffees, but it was the iced tea. I found one for me, and my mom was telling her friend and said, "Oh, I'd be interested in that." And sure enough, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I happened to come across one. So it just, there's a whole host of items that are there that you just wash them, you clean them, you use them, and especially when you have children, oh my gosh, they grow too fast to buy their
Yeah.
clothes brand new out the store. So that's just one of the things. And if it weren't
Appreciate
for
that.
that, I'd probably be in deep doo-doo in some regards.
Yeah, I have a list of 101 ways to save money. Maybe some of those ideas, for different strokes for different folks. But I'd be happy to share those with you. And some of the, I would say that there's probably a few of them that are on the list that may occur to you, but I would say that there's probably dozens of money saving ideas. Look, nobody ever went broke saving money, right? That's a fact. And now I'm not talking about being miserly or cheap or stingy or whatever. I'm just talking about being frugal, prudent, and cautious with the way that we spend money a little bit more than we are. What is the price of now I'm not picking on Starbucks. I like Starbucks coffee. I just don't go there all that often because I can't justify how much is a cup of coffee at Starbucks today. Ellen?
Well, the coffee that I used to go and get Starbucks is now almost $7. Now, it wasn't one of those, all I got was a decaf cappuccino with soy milk. So now I've got some beautiful soy milk at home and my own little frother, and I don't know, this could be $60, $70 a month if I had one or two a week,
Yeah. I mean, that just kills me. My wife tells me all the time I'm stuck in 1980s prices, but $7 for a cup of coffee. Oh my gosh, that's just crazy. But different strokes for different folks. I would never tell anybody to stop doing that. So I would say that step number one, and always coming back to the basics. When Vince Lombardi started his championship football team off at practice, he would hold up a football at the beginning of practice and he would say, "Gentlemen, this is a football." That's how basic they got, right? And Coach Wooden would start teaching his players how to tie their shoes and properly put on their socks. These are professional athletes at the top of their game doing the most basic of the basics. So it always comes back to the basics. And I think that it always starts with a spending plan. Don't necessarily want to call it a budget, but let's call it a spending plan. And then determining what are needs and what are wants, right? And there's, making a distinction between the stuff I want, the stuff I need, and the stuff that I have the money for, right? And really making those tough decisions. Look really carefully at your budget. Are there really things that you need or that you just want? And sometimes making a delay I would say one of the biggest mistakes or errors is to put it on consumer credit, especially things that are wants and not needs. By the way, if you're putting needs on credit, that's a catastrophe for disaster. So identifying which one of those needs and which one of those wants, and which one of those maybe a little bit of delayed gratification. I find that sometimes the impulse buy at the store, if you had thought about it, you probably wouldn't have bought a lot of things that you bought. All right, let's talk a little bit about eliminating ways that people fail financially, managing, reducing, and eliminating risk, fees, and taxes. So I want to share with you the number 9shortquestions.com. As a matter of fact, let me pull that up here on here, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's the number 9shortquestions.com, and that is a place for you to go if you would like to start a complimentary basic analysis and financial plan and program where you can put in all of your numbers, all of your budgeting, and start tracking your progress. You can have our assistance if you'd like, but you don't necessarily have to. And you just click on that button to get started, and that will start your planning process and program. Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen. There it is. So it's 9shortquestions.com, which is not all this gobbledygook here. It's the 9shortquestions.com to start the program. And this is what it looks like here to get started. By the way, this is an encrypted website, and it's completely secure and private. But I want to get back to eliminating the ways that most people fail financially, reducing waste, right? Reducing drag on your plan and your program, reducing and eliminating risk, fees, and taxes. The example that we gave before about paying taxes on those doubles, you could see that not taking taxes into consideration could be $1 million mistake for some folks. And I know that earlier the question was asked about life and annuities, and I'm going to hit on a little bit of it here. But the idea is to make zero your hero. The goal is zero debt. Now, when I say debt, I'm talking about bad. The difference between bad debt and good debt is good debt makes you money. That's leverage. Bad debt doesn't make you money. It's a consumer debt is an example of bad debt, right? Zero tax as much as possible, right? And zero risk and zero stress equals happy, happy life. Now, when it comes to zero tax, there's a lot of ways to go about it, but there are generally two categories of ways to save money that are zero tax, right? Never paying taxes on your gains or your interest or your investments. One is a Roth IRA, and the other one is index universal life insurance or life insurance in general. Now, index universal life insurance gives you the upside of the stock market without the downside risk. The money grows tax deferred, and it can come out tax free, as well as having a death benefit and other living benefits. So we'll hit a little bit on that. We'll cover more for our agents and associates in our training classes. Now, I went through some of the common blunders, kind of get to the heart of the blunders that intelligent people make. Number one is treating financial planning like a part-time job. It's a full-time profession. And just like, I wouldn't contemplate doing my own dentistry. I don't even contemplate cutting my own hair, never mind doing my own financial planning. Even the best, Tiger Woods had at one time 7 different coaches. Even the best have coaches. Number two, not having risk management strategies. I'll ask people all the time, what is your risk management strategy and how does it work? And they give me a deer in the headlights. They have no idea. What is your tax management strategy? What is your tax mitigation strategy? In other words, what is your plan to reduce and or eliminate taxes? Trying to time the markets. The average consumer really makes a terrible investor. They're driven by emotions, usually greed and fear. And when they should be when they should be driven by fear, they're driven by greed. And when they should be driven by greed, they're driven by fear, right? The average investor usually does the exact opposite of what they really should be doing. Ignoring the biggest risk of all, and that's outliving your money, expecting any approach to work 100% of the time, and hiring money managers based on the numbers. And I've got a whole bunch of them as well that I'd be happy to share with you. I don't want to bore you too much with all of these, but I did want to share this with you. And this is the impact of emotion on investors. When the market is going up, as you see here, that is the signal for, oh my gosh, the market's going up. They hear from their friends, and their friends say, oh my gosh, my 401k or my IRAs or whatever, they're growing and they're growing, and everybody, oh, I wanted to open up the question just for a second here. How many folks in here have heard of or are familiar with NVIDIA? Okay, and what have you heard about NVIDIA?
It's hot. You got to get it.
It's hot. You got to get it. Now, would you say that when you start getting stock tips from the guy at the grocery store, is that usually a good hot tip? Now, I will say that there are still places, is nowhere near the bargain that it once was. However, and I know we have some folks on here that are experts in the AI world, but you know, their AI is going to be changing a lot of things going forward. Many for the better, some may be mixed and so on, but AI is going to be the next revolution. But my point in saying that is, that's how folks start picking their stocks. Talking to someone today, they were buying battery manufacturers that make electric car batteries, and they're not doing so well. So here's what happens. Let me go back to my chart. So the conversation is, Peter says to me, man, I bought that NVIDIA. It is just taking off like crazy. And I go, wonderful. And I buy it. Guess where I buy it? Right in about you. And then it starts to go down a little bit. And I go, oh, man, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Oh, wow. Here we go. And I sell it. So what did I do? I bought it at the high and I sold it at the low. I did the exact opposite of what I should be doing. And folks, you know, repeat this over and over again until they go broke. Another way to look at this is, you know, from the optimism through the excitement, the roller coaster. Wow, this is great, the euphoria, and then the anxiety. Oh my gosh, it's tanking, and the fear and depression and panic starts to set in, and so on. In fact, this chart does kind of the same thing. Oh, the price of the market's going up. I don't know if it's going to hold. Darn, I missed it again. Good thing I didn't wait. Let me get in now. Oh, looks like a little correction in the market. Brilliant. At this price, let's double it. Ouch. It's come back and selling it. Well, I don't believe it's down again. Look, it's going to recover. What's the SE doing? That's it. I'm out. I'm selling. Good thing I sold everything here. Whoop. It's starting to go back up. Not going to get me this time. Look at that. I told you so. You what? How much did you make? What the heck is going on in the market? There we go. And they just keep going and repeating, doing the exact opposite of what they should do, right? Albert Einstein said that the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you look at the average track record of the average investor, the 30-year average when this was done back in 2015 was over 10% for the S&P 500. But yet the average investor was a 3.66. How is that possible? Well, one of the reasons is they're driven by fear and greed and, quite frankly, mess up the strategies. So money blunders of the otherwise intelligent. Number one, get a plan. Number two, get a budget. Number three, track your budget. number 4, start to track what you're doing and how you're doing it, and live below your means. Now, if you're older and don't have that works fantastic if you're 19 years old, right? What happens if you're 62? What do you do then? The same exact thing. It's just that you're not going to have as big of results or an impact. And in fact, it's even more imperative that you really rein in wasteful spending and so on. You can live on a lot less, save a lot more going forward. So that's my my little lecture part. I wanted to open it up for questions or discussion. You guys have any questions? Anything in particular? I will, Ellen.
Ryan, I'm sorry, it's Elaine. I do. For those who are on the call, who are in learning mode in various stages, and who have children, how could the parent who is learning counsel, advise, educate, train their children so that as they grow up and begin to mature and hit adulthood, that they are financially wise and savvy? Because in terms that a child could understand, but just in simple language, because we're all learning and we're in various stages, but how can the children benefit from our learning? And it helps contribute to when mom and dad say, well, we're not going to do this now, or this is not appropriate now, etc.
Well, that's a great question, Elaine. The younger you start, the better. And the best way to learn is by example. For children and grandchildren, having them understand the power of savings, the power of saving and investing, the power of tax deferral and tax-free. Now, for children, generally speaking, depends on their age, generally speaking, they don't have earned income and can't do Roth IRA. That's one of the reasons why we recommend $1 Million Baby. The $1 Million Baby is an index universal life policy that they use to become their own bank. So when they need to buy cars, go to college, weddings, buy a house, etc., instead of borrowing from the bank, instead of borrowing from GMAC or Nissan Motor Corp, they borrow from themselves and pay themselves back. And with that, that is a huge piece of leverage, compounding over time, tax-free, and being able to use that as their own bank. I also recommend, and especially for folks that have their own business and where possible, we just had a client the day before yesterday whose daughter worked for the summer and earned some income. And I said, set up a Roth IRA for that. Someone's background. I don't know where that's coming from. Anyway, set up a Roth IRA for that child. And they put $1,000 in the Roth IRA. And that, by the way, $1,000 compounded growth for 50 or 60 years. What's the rule of 72 in compound interest, Peter? We're going to put the test to it. Ready? So let's just hypothetical. We're going to say for mathematics, we're going to say 12%.
6
And
years.
that means
it'll double in 6.
Double in 6 years. And let's say that we're going to grow that for 60 years. So that's how many doubles?
10.
10. So 1,000 becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 32, 64, 128, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 128. I'm going to have to get my calculator here. 128 times 2 is 256. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 2 $512,000. Somebody want to check my math on that?
No, because you got one of those fancy little calculators that, only you have to be a rocket science to work it.
That's $500,000. Now, think about that. That was $1,000 one time. Could you imagine? Let's go back in our time machine, Peter. Back to Denville, New Jersey, 60 years ago, and somebody
Right.
put $1,000 into a Roth IRA for you, and right now you had $500,000. Now, what is the next double?
$1 million.
$1 million. In that the next 6-year period,
Right.
it took 60 years to get to $500,000, and then it took 6 years to get to $1 million. That's the power of compound. Cool. I love that. And by the way, if you had set that up as a bank and used it and you paid yourself back, right? And teaching children to do that. Excellent question, Elaine. Ellen, you've got your hand up?
Well, I don't know if it was a question. However, when people go to take their Social Security, I don't think they realize the power of having tax-free income that doesn't go against your provisional income, how valuable that information is. So, it seems silly to try to teach it in school, but you can certainly teach that in higher level school, that they need to understand those facts. So when you're putting money in a 401k, wouldn't it have been better for them to put it in a Roth? They saved a little bit of tax now. That doesn't go against their taxes when they start taking it out after 60-something years old, when they start their Social Security. So it's a crime. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, when we do our Social Security workshops, folks come in, the average person, what age do you think the average person starts collecting Social Security?
62.
And why is that, Peter?
Well, I guess a couple things. Could be fear that Social Security will not be around forever.
Get the money when the money's there, right? Get it while the getting's good, right?
Because they're told they can get it at 62. If they were told they have to wait to 65, they would wait to 65. It's based on what they're told.
Yeah, and what they don't realize is that they could have 75% more. That's step number one, by delaying. But what could we be doing in the meantime? In the meantime, instead of taking that income at that time, which now, as Ellen said, provisional income makes their Social Security taxable, we could be doing things like Roth conversions while their income tax level is lower. And we show folks how real simple. If you pay less in taxes, your money lasts longer through retirement, and you have less of a chance of running out of money. Number one. Number two is, I believe that taxes, most experts will agree that taxes will have to be much higher in the future than they are today. So the opportunity for Roth conversions, especially now, taxes are one of the lowest points they've ever been in our history, with record debt, record deficit, unfunded liability, an aging population of seniors taking, to not consider doing the Roth conversions, I think is crazy. So that's another great avenue to pursue. Going back to the Social Security, by the way, at the end of 10 years, the Social Security Trust Fund is expected about 10 years from now to run out of money. And what that means is it automatically kicks in that it will have to revert to the ongoing payroll taxes as they come in, which means an automatic reduction of 25% in your Social Security. Now, I believe that there are some short, relatively easy fixes to make Social Security keep it the way it is today, just by delaying future generations from being able to take at later ages. But be that as it may, Social Security is a very, very important asset that most people don't do the analysis on. They just go, hey, I can collect it. I'm collecting it now. And of course we do those workshops, right, Peter? Peter, I'm so glad you showed up tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Anybody else? Anything else? I hope you guys learned something tonight. I hope that was helpful, worthwhile. Ellen dropped in the chat the jot form. If you'd like a copy of anything that we talked about tonight, or have questions, or would like to get on the 9shortquestions.com, feel free to do that. No cost, no obligation. We're not going to try and twist anybody's arm to become a client, or that's not the way we work or we operate. We want to, as Alma said earlier on the call, is to provide value. And some folks will see the value, some folks won't. That's okay. We love everybody, and we want to try to help as many people as we can.
Brian, it's Elaine. I have one more question, and I think it's really important, at least it is to me. And that is when you're on a fixed income, or you have a limited income, and it's important to save, which I understand. But you look and you say every penny coming in is pretty much going out. How do I, or how does a person justify, you know what, if I'm going to save 1 penny this month, or I'm going to save 10 cents, give some guidance so that what can we do to develop the habit of but not thinking, what does it matter? It's only 10 cents. So given our overall budget, we all have different things. It's a mind game. So how can we get over the hump of why bother? I don't have anything substantial. It's going to take eons for this to happen. Help in that regard, please.
Sure. When is the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. If you didn't plant it 20 years ago, when is the next best time to plant the tree? Today, right? And I would say that I get it. Everybody wants the overnight, etc. However, somebody who's maybe 65 years old, they could live 30 more years. Their life is not over. 30 years, how many doubles do we have at a 10% rate of return every 7 years, right? So we've got 7, 14, 21. We've got 4 or 5 doubles in there. Now, of course, you're 90 years old. I don't know how many cruises and whatever you're doing at that age, but life isn't over at that point. Now, I will say that one of the secrets to the way we work and the way we operate, and many folks, not everyone, but many folks get licensed and become referral agents with us and use the referral agent income to now start putting money away. To make money as a referral agent with us, to make another 20, and I'm not going to get crazy with the numbers, but make another 20, 30, $50,000 a year as a part-time referral agent is not unheard of. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy or it's simple. It is simple, but it's not always easy. But imagine saving an extra $50,000 a year, where that would get you. And by the way, what sort of a pension, or how much would you need in assets in order to generate $50,000 a year? Right? So if you could do that, what if it took you 2 or 3 years as a part-time professional doing referrals, learning the business, and along the way we're making an extra $30,000 to $50,000 a year? How much, and that's my question to you, how much money would you need to save in a savings account, Ellen Daly, at a 5% rate of return to generate 50 grand a year? And tell me how you get to the answer.
You put me on the spot, so I have no clue.
Want me to do it? Okay, here's how you do it. So this is how I do it in my head. If the goal is $50,000 a year, let's use some nice round numbers, 10%. So in order to generate 50,000, I would have to start with $500,000 at 10%. 10% is a little high. Let's go 5%. That would mean double the amount, right? So you would need to have $1 million at 5% to generate 50 grand a year. Now, do you think it's more likely to save $1 million in the next 2 or 3 years, or to generate a business? Again, I'm not saying that it's easy, but generate a business that's making you $30,000 to $50,000 a year in our business, right? So that to me is the real retirement miracle. We call that the baby boomer retirement rescue plan. Okay, so for folks that are maybe looking for an encore career, to be able to do that. Now, we do have folks that make that not only a year, some a month, some a week, etc. I'm not comparing you to any of those folks. However, if one person can do it, many other people can do it as well. So, whew.
Brian,
Yes, Alma.
um, going back to what Elaine was asking and teaching a child to save and, the $1 million baby and all of that, what are some examples of some vehicles that a young person could start putting their money into that pays, a decent percentage for them to double their money every X number of years using the rule of 72?
Well, one of the things that we recommend is Index Universal. I have a video on it I can send you as well. Is Index Universal Life as what we call $1 million baby vehicle, because you get the upside of the stock market without the downside risk, and the money comes out income tax free. Along the way, they also get life insurance and living benefits if they happen to get sick, horrible sicknesses or chronic illness or critical illnesses that happen. But if none of those happen, they get a tax-free stream of income. But even more importantly, I think, is now you've developed and are developing for them a lifelong bank that they can borrow money from themselves, from that bank as they build it up, and then pay themselves back. And we've done the calculations on that. Just by buying automobiles from yourself, same number of automobiles that you would buy, there's not any expensive or less expensive automobiles, but just the way you finance it by becoming your own banker, if you will, using Index Universal Life to do that, is over $1 million difference in someone's life. So exact same expenditures, just leveraged differently. So Alma, we recommend that a great gift for a child, grandchild, is the $1 million baby. And many parents and grandparents start that off with maybe $100 a month. I mean, it can be a very humble start. Does that help?
Wonderful, thank you.
Now, we also show some business owners as well that in addition, sometimes they can do Roth IRA and hire children in their business. Now, there are some limitations on that. You've got to watch out for kiddie tax and payroll tax and some limitations, but you don't have any of those problems or challenges with life insurance. Whew. I don't know, time flew for me. I hope it flew by for you. Thanks for joining us. We do this every month, different topics each month. And I hope you guys took a lot away from it. And if you would like some more information, just hit that chat form in the chat or send us a message, and we'd be happy to send you some more stuff. And by the way, these are open to invites, your friends, family, neighbors as well. Okay. See you.